Hi, and on this episode of Real Talent, I'm talking to Catherine Gordon. Catherine is a teacher and is going to talk to us a bit about what it's like to identify and nurture real talent in the classroom scenario. Catherine, thank you very much for joining me. And could you just give us a quick introduction? Who are you and what do you do?
So yeah, Catherine, I went off to university, did a French degree, went into the world of work, various jobs in hospitality, retail, a bit of time at Glasgow Housing Association, and finally into finance for a massive oil company. Then my experiences with Glasgow Housing Association and working within accountancy brought me to the conclusion that I was probably best suited to working with lots of people rather than in a small team of people. So I went back to university and did my postgraduate in education. And in the last 9 years, I've been head of language department at an average secondary school, state secondary school, we've just academised in England.
Interesting. Okay. Now, you obviously you're running a department, and you are you've been a teacher for a long time as well. So I want to understand, how do you know when you've identified somebody in the classroom, a student who you think has got real talent? What is it you see in that person that you think, yeah, they've got something special?
So I think it comes down to what I call the 3 C's. So the first one is communication. I like it when I see a student who considers their audience, someone who is able to explain things in layman's terms, ask the right questions, someone who has good listening skills, someone who is able to pick out the important points of what have been said, someone who is willing to learn from other people. There's a whole raft of skills involved in communication, and I think a lot of it starts there. The second C, I would say, is character. So you've got a lot of young people who have a strong work ethic, who are resilient, who are determined, who are curious, curious about the world around them, curious to learn more, curious about why things happen. Students who are independent learners, students who are team players, but also have individual ambition. So there's a massive combination of different character traits that I think you can spot quite early on in a student that point to the fact that they're going to be successful. In saying that, you do have some students who don't demonstrate a fantastic work ethic, but have natural ability. And when their talents are put into the right context, they will thrive. On the other hand, you've got students who are not so naturally talented, but have a strong work ethic. And again, that will bring them a certain amount of success. But the standout students are those who have both that strong work ethic, resilience, determination, and those who are naturally talented, curious, and independent. And the third C, I would say, is cognition. So looking at how a student thinks about things, metacognition, how they actually learn to learn, because we've been doing quite a lot about that in school recently. It's simple for us to sit there as adults with all our ingrained, trained thinking skills going on and expect people to be able to understand how best to go about a task. But actually, there is a process of learning to learn, a train of thought, putting ideas together, coming to conclusions, how to get unstuck and problem solve. Transferable skills in cognition as well, and that natural talent versus learned abilities. So the 3 C's: communication, character, and cognition.
Wow. I've got to be honest, I wasn't expecting that. That's a lot of really, really powerful stuff, and it's very, very transferable into the commercial world as well. All of that. It also reminds me a bit about what somebody, a sports coach, told me recently as well, on a different episode of this Real Talent. So there's going to be some real parallels there, which is very interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
let's talk about how you go about nurturing that talent. So you've identified some people who have got the ability to either the ability or the character to go and succeed. How do you go about nurturing that talent? What are the best techniques?
So I think this is a different generation to when, for example, we were growing up. And I think we're far more aware of external influences now. So actually supporting talent, supporting natural talent, and it is actually sometimes far more difficult than supporting someone who has a good work ethic. I think, for example, confidence is one thing that all employers should be thinking about. Are their candidates, are their employees confident to do what they're being asked to do? Do they have that support within their own lives externally from work? So what's their home environment like? Do they have additional challenges that they're trying not to bring into work? Can personalized intervention be put in place for people to help them thrive? So on a school level, we're far more aware, for example, of factors such as gender identity, cultural identity, mental well-being, socio-economic backgrounds, and so disadvantaged students, for example. These things don't just go away when someone enters a place of work. These things all exist. Sometimes in the forefront of their lives, sometimes more in the background of their lives, but it can hinder people from making the kind of progress that they're capable of making. So the level of support that I'd be thinking of from an educational background is what you can do to support holistically, support a person to fulfill their potential.
So not everybody is going to have the same level of motivation. When you've got a class of people in front of you, some people are inspired and immediately enthusiastic, and some people are going to be probably a little bit less motivated to really get stuck into that lesson and get stuck into their academic work. How do you try and keep everybody inspired? How do you bring the people that are kind of at the back of the pack? How do you try and bring everybody forward in the one go?
With great difficulty, but essentially, you have to know your audience. So if you have a classroom of students in front of you, the more you know about them, the more you know what they enjoy and how they best engage, the more likely you are to get the best out of them. So one thing you can consider, for example, is learning styles. Some students are far more kinesthetically able, or that's what, using their hands, physically doing things will help bring on their success. Some find that listening, audio helps them to learn best, and some people are more visual learners. So in a classroom with so many people with these different learning styles in front of you, you have to have a mixture of different activities. If I consider myself as a person who trains young people, then I would always consider making sure that my audience, that I appeal to different people in my audience by choosing to present information in several different ways to give them the best chance of finding a way for them to process that information. Like I said, intervention, starting with I, so thinking about the person themselves, like me being a learner, it's all about me, thinking about them, all the people around them who influence them, and then thinking about it, which is the intervention that can be put in place by people outside of that sort of inner circle. And then if need be, then obviously incentivizing them with some form of bribery. Clearly in school, that's going to be things like points, chocolate, reward systems that we put in place. But who that there are very few students who aren't completely disengaged, who won't rise to the challenge of an incentive put in place. But you've got to make those incentives realistic, which means you have to differentiate your incentives as well. What works, but what will incentivize one student won't necessarily incentivize another group of students. So they sometimes have different targets that they have to reach, and different prizes in place, depending on the level of the challenge, if you like.
I've got to be honest, this is all a lot more technical than I was expecting it to be. And I've learned an awful lot from listening to you talking about this. And I can't believe how relevant and transferable this all is into business. And so I hope for HR people and any other managers out there that have listened to this, I hope you find it as interesting as I have. So Catherine, thanks so much for coming and joining me, and it was really nice to talk to you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.